The stars looked different today. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Discovery, watching the endless black space through the main window. His ship had been traveling for 3 months now, far beyond any place humans had ever been before. The mission was simple: explore new worlds and look for signs of life. What Jake did not know was that this trip would change everything humans believed about themselves. Lisa Adams sat at her navigation station, checking their position for the 10th time that hour. She was nervous, and Jake could tell. They were so far from Earth that the radio signals took weeks to reach home. If something went wrong out here, they were completely alone. "Captain, we're getting close to the target system," Lisa said, her voice steady despite her worry. "Should be there in 2 hours," Jake nodded. The target system had caught their attention because of strange energy readings. Something was out there, something that did not match any natural phenomenon they knew about. The science team back on? Earth was very excited about it. In the engine room, Carlos Rivera was making sure everything ran smoothly. He had been an engineer for 15 years, and he knew every sound the Discovery made. Right now, everything seemed normal. The fusion engines hummed quietly, pushing them through space at incredible speed. Dr. Amanda Foster was in her lab, preparing equipment for whatever they might find. As the ship's xenobiologist, she studied alien life forms. So far in her career, she had only looked at bacteria and simple organisms found on dead planets. She hoped this mission would be different. She hoped they would finally find real alien life. The Discovery was not a big ship, but it was well built. It had living quarters for 20 people, though only 8 were on this mission. The rest of the crew included 2 security officers, a medical doctor, and a communications specialist. They were Earth's best and brightest, chosen for this important mission. Jake walked around the bridge, checking each station. He had been a ship captain for 12 years, but this was his first deep space exploration mission. Before this, he had commanded cargo ships and patrol vessels around Earth's solar system. This job was different. This job might make history. "Captain," called Nina Bell from the communications station, "I'm picking up something strange. It looks like a distress signal, but it's not using any frequency we know about." Jake hurried over to her station. Nina was their best communications officer, and if she said something was strange, it probably was. The signal appeared on her screen as a series of blinking lights and patterns Jake did not recognize. "Can you clean it up?" Jake asked. Nina worked at her controls for several minutes. Slowly, the signal became clearer. It was definitely artificial, definitely made by some kind of intelligence. But it was not human. "Captain, this is definitely a distress call," Nina said. "The pattern repeats every 30 seconds. Someone or something is in trouble?" Jake made a decision that would change the fate of humanity. "Lisa, change course. Head toward the source of that signal." "But Captain, that will take us away from our planned route," Lisa said. "I know, but we can't ignore. Someone calling for help, even if they're not human?" The Discovery changed direction and headed toward the distress signal. As they got closer, their sensors began picking up more information. There was a small spacecraft drifting in space, badly damaged. It looked like it had been in a fight. "Captain, I'm reading one life form on that ship," said Dr. Foster, studying her sensor readings. "It's alive, but barely." Jake ordered his crew to prepare for a rescue mission. They brought the alien ship into the Discovery's cargo bay using their tractor beam. The alien vessel was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered its surface. Security officers Danny Price and Helen Wright prepared to enter the alien ship. They wore full environmental suits and carried medical equipment. Dr. Foster went with them, eager to meet the first intelligent alien humans had ever encountered. The inside of the alien ship was even stranger than the outside. The walls curved in impossible ways, and there were no straight lines anywhere. Everything glowed with a soft blue light. They found the alien in what appeared to be the ship's control room. The creature was dying. It was about the size of a human, but its skin was gray and covered with scales. It had 4 arms and large, dark eyes. When it saw the humans, it made sounds that their translation computers could not understand. Dr. Foster quickly scanned the alien with her medical equipment. Its body chemistry was completely different from anything on Earth, but she could tell it was in great pain. Whatever had attacked its ship had hurt it badly. The alien seemed to understand that the humans were trying to help. It reached out with one of its 4 hands and touched Dr. Foster's helmet. Suddenly, images flashed through her mind. She saw planets burning, ships fighting in space, and creatures that looked like humans being taken away in chains. "Captain," Dr. Foster said over the radio, her voice shaking, "you need to get down here right now. This alien is trying to tell us something very important." Jake hurried down to the cargo bay. When he arrived, the alien looked at him with its large eyes. Again, it touched his helmet, and the same images flashed through Jake's mind. But this time, there were more details. The alien showed Jake images of Earth, but not the Earth they knew. This Earth was different, older somehow. There were humans there, but they lived in simple villages and had no technology. Then Jake saw ships coming from space, taking humans away by the thousands. The alien, who somehow communicated that its name was Kethvar, showed Jake more images. Humans working as slaves on distant worlds. Humans being bought and sold like animals. Humans suffering and dying while alien masters grew rich from their labor, but the most shocking image was yet to come. Kethvar showed Jake the truth about Earth itself. The planet was not humanity's real home. Humans had been brought there long ago and left to multiply, like farmers raising cattle. Every few thousand years, the aliens came back to harvest more humans for their slave markets. Jake could barely believe what he was seeing. According to Kethvar, every human who had ever lived was descended from slaves. Earth was just a prison planet designed to look like paradise. Kethvar was getting weaker. With great effort, he reached into his clothing and pulled out a small crystal that glowed with inner light. He pressed it into Jake's hand and spoke words that the translation computer finally understood. "Your people ... The truth. They come ... soon. To harvest ... Again, you must ... be ready." The alien's eyes closed, and Dr. Foster's medical scanners showed that its life signs were fading. "Don't die," Jake said, even though he knew Kethvar probably could not understand him. "We need to know more. We need to understand." But Kethvar was beyond help. With his last breath, he whispered something that made Jake's blood run cold. The translation computer picked up the words clearly. "The hegemony comes. They think you are still cattle. Prove them wrong." Then Kethvar died, leaving Jake holding the mysterious crystal and a head full of impossible images. Dr. Foster ran every test she could on the crystal, but it was made of materials that did not exist on Earth. Inside it, she found what appeared to be star charts, genetic information, and something that looked like historical records. Jake called his senior officers together in the ship's conference room. He told them everything that had happened, everything Kethvar had shown him. At first, they thought he was suffering from some kind of alien mental attack. But when Dr. Foster analyzed the crystal's contents, they began to realize that the impossible might be true. The crystal contained coordinates to a place called Taros Prime, which Kethvar's memory suggested was humanity's real homeworld. It also contained genetic patterns that matched human DNA perfectly, but with additional sequences that had been locked away for thousands of years. Most disturbing of all, the crystal contained evidence of what Kethvar called the hegemony. This was a group of 5 alien species that had been using humans as slaves for over 50,000 years. According to the records, they were planning to return to Earth soon for another harvest. Jake made the hardest decision of his life. He ordered Lisa to set course for home immediately. Humanity had to know the truth about their origins, no matter how terrible that truth might be. The Discovery turned away from its exploration mission and headed back toward Earth at maximum speed. As they traveled through space, Jake stared at the crystal and wondered if his species was strong enough to face what was coming. According to Kethvar's memories, the hegemony had technology far beyond anything humans possessed. They had been conquering and enslaving species for millions of years, But there was something else in those memories, something that gave Jake hope. In every image of human slaves, he saw the same thing: they never gave up. Even after thousands of years of slavery, humans kept fighting, kept hoping, kept believing that someday they would be free. Maybe that was enough. Maybe the human spirit was stronger than alien technology. Jake looked out at the stars and made a promise to himself and to the memory of Kethvar. When the hegemony came to harvest humanity, they would find something they did not expect. They would find a species that refused to be cattle. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, Dr. Amanda Foster worked day and night studying the crystal that Kethvar had given them. What she found made her lose sleep and question everything she thought she knew about human history. The crystal contained detailed genetic maps showing that humans originally came from a planet called Tyros Prime in the Andromeda sector. The genetic information proved beyond doubt that Earth humans and Taros humans were the same species, separated by thousands of years and millions of light years. Captain Jake Morrison spent most of the trip in his quarters, going through Kethvar's memories over and over again. Each time he touched the crystal, new images flooded his mind. He saw human colonies scattered across the galaxy, some living free, others working as slaves. He saw the 5 alien species that made up the hegemony, and he began to understand how they had controlled humanity for so long. When the discovery finally reached Earth, Jake immediately requested a meeting with Admiral Patricia Hayes, head of the United Earth Space Command. Admiral Hayes was a tough woman who had worked her way up through the ranks over 30 years. She did not believe in alien stories or wild theories. Jake sat across from Admiral Hayes in her office, the crystal placed on the desk between them. He told her everything that had happened, everything he had learned. Admiral Hayes listened without saying a word, but Jake could see the doubt in her eyes. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Hayes said when he finished his story, "what you're telling me sounds like science fiction. You're saying that every human being on Earth is descended from aliens who were kidnapped from another planet?" "I know how it sounds, Admiral, but the evidence is right here." Jake pushed the crystal toward her. "Dr. Foster has run every test possible. The genetic information in this crystal matches human DNA perfectly, but it shows sequences we've never seen before." Admiral Hayes picked up the crystal and turned it over in her hands. It felt warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. "Even if this is true, Captain, what do you expect me to do about it?" "You're talking about events that happened thousands of years ago. The harvest, Admiral. According to Kethvar's memories, the hegemony comes back every few thousand years to take more humans. The last time was during the time of ancient Rome. If the pattern holds, they're due to return soon." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then she made a decision that would change the course of human history. "I'm calling together the United Earth Council. If what you're saying is true, then every person on this planet needs to know about it." While Admiral Hayes prepared for the council meeting, she assigned Intelligence Officer Ryan Cooper to investigate Jake's claims. Ryan was a careful man who believed in facts, not stories. He had worked in intelligence for 20 years and had seen every kind of lie and trick people could think of. Ryan started by looking at human history with new eyes. If Jake's story was true, then there should be evidence of alien interference throughout human civilization. He began with ancient texts and legends from around the world. What Ryan found surprised him. Every major culture on Earth had stories about beings from the sky taking people away. The ancient Greeks wrote about gods kidnapping humans. Native American tribes told stories of star people who came in flying objects. Hindu texts described flying machines that carried people to other worlds. Ryan had always assumed these were just myths and legends. Now he began to wonder if they were actually historical records. He dug deeper into human genetic history. Scientists had always been puzzled by certain gaps in human evolution. There were times when humans seemed to advance very quickly, followed by periods where they seemed to go backward. If aliens were interfering with human development, these gaps would make perfect sense. Communications specialist Nina Bell was working on a different kind of investigation. She had been monitoring all radio and satellite communications for any unusual signals. 3 days after the Discovery returned to Earth, she found something that made her blood run cold. Nina discovered coded transmissions being sent between unknown locations in space. The signals were using frequencies that no human technology could produce. When she managed to decode part of the messages, she found references to something called the Terra experiment and discussions about premature technological acceleration. One message that Nina intercepted was particularly disturbing. It talked about concerns that the livestock on Earth were developing space travel faster than expected. The message suggested that the harvest schedule might need to be moved up. Nina immediately reported her findings to Ryan Cooper. Together, they began mapping the sources of these transmissions. What they found was a network of alien communication posts scattered throughout the solar system, hidden on asteroids and small moons. Dr. Foster continued her analysis of the crystal, and each day brought new discoveries. She found star charts showing the locations of other human colonies throughout the galaxy. Some of these colonies appeared to be thriving, with technology far beyond what Earth possessed. Others seemed to have been completely destroyed or abandoned. The most shocking discovery came when Dr. Foster found genetic information about something called adaptive resilience. According to the crystal's data, humans possessed a unique genetic trait that allowed them to survive and thrive in almost any environment. This trait was so rare and valuable that alien civilizations were willing to pay enormous prices for human slaves. The crystal contained records of human slaves being sold to dozens of different alien species. Some were bought for physical labor, others for their ability to adapt to hostile environments. Some were purchased for experiments, and others for reasons that Dr. Foster did not want to think about. When the United Earth Council finally met, the room was filled with tension. Representatives from every nation on Earth had gathered to hear Jake's story and examine the evidence. Many of them were skeptical, but as Dr. Foster presented her scientific findings, the mood in the room began to change. The genetic evidence was impossible to ignore. The crystal contained DNA sequences that were clearly human, but with additional information that Earth scientists had never seen. The star charts were accurate down to the smallest detail, showing stellar formations that human telescopes had only recently discovered. Ryan Cooper presented his intelligence findings. The pattern of alien interference throughout human history was clear once you knew what to look for. Major disasters, plagues, and wars all seemed to happen just when humanity was making significant technological progress. The Black Death in medieval Europe had occurred just as humans were beginning to develop more advanced engineering. The collapse of several advanced civilizations throughout history had happened when they were on the verge of major scientific breakthroughs. It was as if something was deliberately keeping humanity from advancing too quickly. Nina Bell's communications intercepts provided the final piece of evidence. The alien messages clearly showed that Earth was being monitored and that some kind of harvest was being planned. The references to humans as livestock and experimental subjects left no doubt about the aliens' intentions. Council President Marcus Webb called for a vote. The question was simple: did the Council believe that humanity was facing an alien threat that required immediate action? The vote was unanimous. Every representative voted yes. Admiral Hayes was given emergency powers to begin preparing Earth's defenses. She immediately ordered all military forces to high alert and began developing plans to defend the planet against alien attack. But she knew that conventional weapons would not be enough against technology that was thousands of years ahead of humanity's. Meanwhile, Dr. Foster made another discovery in the crystal's data. Hidden deep in the genetic information, she found references to dormant abilities that all humans possessed. According to the records, humans had natural talents that had been suppressed by the hegemony to keep them docile. The crystal suggested that, under the right conditions, humans could develop enhanced strength, accelerated healing, and even the ability to interface directly with technology using their minds. These abilities were part of humanity's original genetic heritage from Taros. Prime. Dr. Foster brought this information to Admiral Hayes, who immediately ordered secret experiments to begin. If humans really did have hidden abilities, they would need every advantage they could get in the coming fight. Ryan Cooper's investigation had uncovered something else disturbing. The alien communication network had been active for decades, possibly centuries. This meant that the hegemony had been watching humanity's development closely. Probably since humans first developed radio technology, the aliens knew about humanity's space program, their weapons technology, and their military capabilities. They had been preparing for the next harvest for years, studying human weaknesses and planning how to overcome any resistance. But there was one thing the aliens did not know. They did not know that humanity had discovered the truth about their origins. They did not know about Kethvar's warning or the information in the crystal. The hegemony still thought of humans as ignorant cattle, unaware of their true situation. This might be humanity's only advantage? If they could prepare in secret? The coordinates from Kethvar's crystal led to a place that should not have existed. According to every star chart that Earth scientists had made, the Andromeda sector was empty space. But the crystal insisted that Taros Prime was there, hidden. Somehow, from human detection. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the joint expedition that would change everything humanity thought they knew about themselves. The new ship UHS Freedom carried Earth's best people on the most important mission in human history. Colonel Danny Price led the military team, while Dr. Helen Wright brought the latest scientific equipment to study whatever they might find. The journey to Taros Prime took 3 weeks using Earth's fastest engines. As they approached the coordinates, the ship's sensors showed nothing but empty space. Dr. Wright checked and rechecked her instruments, but they registered no planets, no stars, nothing at all. Then something impossible happened. The crystal that Jake carried began to glow brighter as they got closer to the coordinates. When the glow reached its peak, space itself seemed to shimmer like water. The empty region began to change, revealing a hidden solar system that had been there all along. "My God," Dr. Wright whispered as she stared at her sensors. "There's an entire star system here. How is this possible?" The answer came from a voice speaking perfect English over their communications system. "Welcome home, children of Earth. We have been waiting for you for a very long time." The voice belonged to someone who called himself Elder Marcus Stone. He explained that Taros Prime used advanced technology to hide their solar system from alien detection. They had been protecting themselves from the hegemony for thousands of years, waiting for the day when their scattered children would find their way home. As the Freedom approached Taros Prime, Jake saw a world that looked like Earth might have looked in paradise. Blue oceans covered most of the planet, with green continents that seemed to glow with health and life. Cities of gleaming towers rose from the landscape, but they blended perfectly with the natural environment. The humans of Taros Prime looked exactly like Earth humans, but there was something different about them. They moved with a grace and confidence that Jake had never seen before. Their eyes seemed to hold depths of knowledge and power that made him feel like a child. Elder Marcus Stone met them at the spaceport. He was a tall man with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see right through people. When he shook Jake's hand, Jake felt a strange energy pass between them, as if Stone was reading his thoughts and memories. "You have done well to come so far," Stone said. "The fact that you received Kethvar's message means that the time of hiding is over. The hegemony has found your world, and the final battle is about to begin." Stone led them to a great hall where hundreds of Terrans had gathered. At the center of the hall stood a woman in military uniform who introduced herself as General Claire Bennett. She commanded the Terran Defense Forces, and she had been preparing for this day her entire life. "Your people on Earth are brave," General Bennett said to Jake, "but they do not understand what they are truly capable of. We have spent the last 50,000 years learning to use the gifts that the hegemony tried to take away from us." Dr. Wright could barely contain her excitement as the Terrans began to demonstrate their abilities. She watched in amazement as a young Terran woman named Lisa Stone lifted a piece of metal that should have weighed several tons. The woman was not using any machinery or tools. She was lifting it with her mind, using what the Terrans called will energy. Another Terran, an engineer named Tom Garcia, showed them how their technology worked. Instead of using computers and keyboards, he simply placed his hands on a control panel and interfaced with the machinery directly through his thoughts. The machine responded to his mental commands faster than any human technology. Dr. Wright had ever seen. Elder Stone explained that every human carried the genetic potential for these abilities. The hegemony had discovered this thousands of years ago and had been very careful to prevent humans from learning about their true capabilities. They used special technology to suppress human development, keeping their slaves weak and docile. The hegemony fears us more than any other species in the galaxy, Stone said. They have been telling themselves for millennia that we are just clever animals, good for labor but no real threat to their power. They are wrong. The human spirit is the one force in the universe that they cannot understand or control. General Bennett took Jake and Colonel Price to see the Terran military forces. What they saw made them realize how unprepared Earth was for the coming battle. Terran soldiers could move faster than the human eye could follow. They could survive in environments that would kill ordinary humans in seconds. Their weapons were powered by the same will energy that ran their technology. But the most impressive thing about the Terran military was not their individual abilities. It was how they worked together. When a group of Terran soldiers focused their will energy together, they could accomplish things that seemed impossible. They could create shields of pure energy, move mountains, or destroy enemy ships with concentrated thought. Dr. Wright spent days studying Terran science and technology. What she learned changed her understanding of physics, biology, and the nature of reality itself. The Terrans had discovered that consciousness and willpower were fundamental forces of the universe, just as important as gravity or electromagnetism. Your scientists on Earth are very smart, explained a Terran physicist named Dr. Amy Peters. But they have been looking at the universe as if it were a machine. They think everything can be explained by mathematics and physical laws. They do not understand that the universe is alive, and that consciousness can directly affect physical reality. The Terrans showed Dr. Wright how they powered their civilization. Instead of burning fuel or splitting atoms, they drew energy directly from the collective will and determination of their people. The more united they were in purpose, the more powerful their technology became. Elder Stone revealed the most shocking truth of all. The hegemony had not just been harvesting humans for slave labor. They had been feeding off human suffering and struggle, literally draining emotional energy from enslaved colonies. Human pain, fear, and despair were converted into power that kept the hegemony's technology running. They have built their entire civilization on our suffering, Stone said, his voice filled with quiet anger. Every ship they fly, every world they control, every weapon they use is powered by the misery of enslaved humans. They have created a galaxy-wide network of human farms, each designed to produce different types of psychic energy through various forms of oppression. This revelation made Jake's blood boil. The hegemony was not just enslaving humans. They were deliberately making them suffer to harvest their emotional energy. Every tragedy in human history, every war and plague and disaster, had been carefully orchestrated to generate the maximum amount of human pain and fear, but there was hope. The Terrans had been fighting back for thousands of years, secretly liberating human colonies and teaching them to use their true abilities. They had built a network of free human worlds throughout the galaxy, all hidden from hegemony detection using the same technology that concealed Taros Prime. General Bennett showed Jake a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots showed hegemony-controlled systems where humans were enslaved. Blue dots showed free human colonies that had been liberated by the Terrans. There were hundreds of both types of systems, scattered across dozens of star sectors. The hegemony thinks they control most of the human colonies, Bennett explained. They do not know that we have been freeing our people for centuries. When the final battle begins, they will be surprised to find that they are vastly outnumbered. The plan that Elder Stone and General Bennett revealed was breathtaking in its scope. They intended to coordinate a simultaneous uprising on every human world in the galaxy. At the same time, the combined fleets of Earth and Taros Prime would attack the hegemony's central command structure, but the key to victory would not be superior technology or greater numbers. It would be the awakening of human abilities that had been dormant for thousands of years. The Terrans had developed techniques to unlock these abilities quickly, even in humans who had never known they possessed them. Dr. Wright volunteered to be the first Earth human to undergo the awakening process. The Terrans placed her in a special chamber filled with crystalline structures that resonated with human brainwaves. As the crystals began to glow, Wright felt changes happening throughout her body and mind when she emerged from the chamber. Hours later, Wright was no longer the same person. She could feel the thoughts and emotions of everyone around her. She could see energy patterns that had been invisible before. Most importantly, she could manipulate matter at the molecular level using focused concentration. Jake and Colonel Price underwent the same process, along with the rest of the Earth expedition team. Each person's abilities manifested differently. Jake found that he could interface with any technology simply by touching it. Colonel Price discovered that his reflexes and strength had increased far beyond human normal. The awakening process was not just physical. It was spiritual and emotional as well, for the first time in their lives. The changes began the moment the Freedom returned to Earth. Admiral Jake Morrison carried with him not just the knowledge of humanity's true heritage, but also the technology and techniques needed to awaken abilities that had been sleeping in human genes for thousands of years. Dr. Helen Wright immediately began working with Earth's best scientists to understand Terran technology. The devices they brought back seemed impossible by Earth standards. Engines that ran on focused thought instead of fuel. Computers that responded to mental commands. Weapons that drew power from the operator's determination and will. Engineer Tony Garcia was assigned to lead the technology integration project. He had always been good with machines, but after his awakening on Taros Prime, he found that he could understand any device just by touching it. When he placed his hands on a Terran power core, he could feel how it worked, could sense the flow of energy through its crystalline structure. It's not really technology at all, Tony explained to the other engineers. It's more like the machines are alive. They respond to what we need them to do, not just what we tell them to do. Working day and night, Tony's team began retrofitting Earth's space fleet with Terran will energy cores. The transformation was incredible. Ships that had barely been able to reach Mars could now travel to other star systems in days instead of years. Weapons that had seemed powerful by Earth standards now generated energy output that could destroy entire asteroids, but the most important work was happening in secret facilities around the world, where carefully selected humans were undergoing the awakening process. Dr. Wright had worked with Terran scientists to create awakening chambers that could be mass-produced. Every day, more Earth humans discovered abilities they never knew they possessed. Pilot Sarah Knox was one of the first to complete the awakening process. She had always been an excellent pilot, but now she could do things that seemed like magic. When she sat in the cockpit of a spacecraft equipped with a Terran interface, she became one with the machine. She could feel its engines like they were. Her own heartbeat could sense dangers that her instruments could not detect. "It's like the ship is part of my body," Sarah told her flight instructor after her first test flight. "I don't have to think about controlling it. I just think about where I want to go, and we go there together." Soldier Brad Coleman discovered that his physical abilities had increased far beyond normal human limits. He could run faster than a racehorse, jump higher than an Olympic athlete, and his reflexes were so quick that he could dodge bullets. More importantly, he found that he could share his enhanced abilities with other soldiers through mental connection. "When we work together as a team, we become something more than human," Brad explained to Colonel Danny Price. "It's like we share one mind, but we still keep our individual personalities. We know what each other is thinking without having to speak." Dr. Amy Peters made the most shocking discovery of all. After her awakening, she found that she could manipulate matter at the molecular level using concentrated thought. She could turn lead into gold, make steel as soft as clay, or create new materials that had never existed before. The possibilities are endless, Dr. Peters told the research team. We're not bound by the old laws of physics anymore. If we can imagine it and focus our will on it, we can make it real. But the awakening process was not just about developing new abilities. It was also about connecting Earth humans to the vast network of free humans scattered across the galaxy. As more people completed the awakening, they began to sense the presence of their brothers and sisters on distant worlds. Intelligence reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, a woman named Maya Chun was organizing slave revolts using the awakening techniques that had been secretly transmitted from Earth. On the agricultural planet of New Eden, a man named Jack Thompson was leading freed humans and building hidden bases for the coming war. The hegemony was beginning to notice that something was wrong. Their energy harvesting stations on human worlds were producing less power than expected. Slave revolts that should have been easily crushed were succeeding against impossible odds. Human workers who had been docile for generations were suddenly displaying abilities that their alien masters could not understand. Communications. Specialist Nina Bell intercepted increasingly frantic messages between hegemony commanders. They were reporting equipment failures, unexpected resistance, and slaves who seemed to have developed supernatural powers overnight. The livestock on Sector 7 have become unmanageable, read one intercepted message. They destroyed 3 harvester ships using only their bare hands, requesting immediate reinforcement. Another message was even more disturbing. Energy production from the Terra colonies has dropped by 60% in the past month. The humans appear to have developed immunity to our suppression technology. Admiral Patricia Hayes coordinated with Terran Fleet Commander Paul Martinez to plan the greatest military operation in human history. The plan required perfect timing and the cooperation of every free human in the galaxy. They would have only one chance to succeed. The strategy was simple in concept but incredibly complex in execution. The combined fleets of Earth and Taros Prime would attack the hegemony's central command structure while human uprising began simultaneously on 12 major slave worlds. The goal was to overload the aliens' ability to respond to multiple threats at once, but the real key to victory would be something the hegemony could never have expected. The awakened humans on each world would link their minds together, creating a network of shared consciousness that spanned the entire galaxy. This network would allow them to coordinate their actions with perfect precision, as if they were all parts of a single organism. Jake Morrison was given command of the Earth Fleet, while General Claire Bennett led the Terran forces. They would strike at the heart of hegemony power, a massive space station called Nexus Prime, where the alien leadership made decisions for their entire empire as the final preparations continued. More Earth humans underwent the awakening process. Each person's abilities manifested in unique ways, but all of them shared the same fundamental connection to the collective human consciousness. Teacher Linda Roberts discovered that she could inspire courage and determination in others just by speaking to them. Her words carried a power that went beyond mere communication, reaching directly into people's hearts and minds. Dr. Kevin Walsh found that he could heal injuries and illnesses by laying his hands on patients and focusing his will on their recovery. He could not explain how it worked, but he could feel the life energy flowing through his patients and help it restore their bodies to perfect health. Artist Rebecca Martinez learned that she could create illusions so realistic that they affected physical reality. Her painted images could become solid objects, and her sculptures could come to life to serve whatever purpose she intended. The variety of human abilities seemed endless. Some people could control the weather, others could communicate with animals. Some could see through time to glimpse possible futures, while others could manipulate gravity itself. The hegemony had been suppressing all of these gifts for thousands of years, keeping humanity weak and ignorant of their true potential. As word of the awakening spread through hidden channels, Humans on slave worlds began to understand what was happening to them. The strange dreams they had been having, the new abilities that were manifesting, the growing sense of connection to something larger than themselves. It was all part of humanity's return to their true nature. The hegemony's response was swift and brutal. Alien forces began conducting massive crackdowns on human colonies, trying to crush the rebellions before they could spread. But they quickly discovered that their old methods no longer worked. Energy weapons that should have killed humans instantly were absorbed and redirected back at their attackers. Slave suppression devices that had kept humans docile for millennia were overloaded and destroyed by the sheer force of human will. Mind control techniques that had worked for thousands of years were simply ignored by humans who had learned to shield their thoughts. On the fortress world of Sigma Draconis, millions of humans had been imprisoned for generations in work camps that harvested their emotional energy. When the awakening reached them, they broke their chains using nothing but focused determination. The prison walls that had held them for decades crumbled under the collective force of their liberated will. The hegemony commanders could not understand what was happening. Their reports described humans displaying abilities that violated every law of physics they knew. Slaves were lifting massive objects with their minds, healing from fatal injuries in minutes, and working together with a coordination that seemed telepathic. But perhaps the most terrifying thing for the aliens was the change in human behavior. For thousands of years, humans had been fearful, desperate, and easy to control. Now they moved with confidence and purpose. They showed no fear of their alien masters, and they fought with a determination that nothing could break. Admiral Hayes received reports that human colonies throughout the galaxy were declaring their independence from hegemony rule. The final battle began at exactly 1200 hours Earth time on what would become known as Liberation Day across 12 star systems. Millions of awakened humans struck at their oppressors with a coordination that stunned the galaxy. Admiral Jake Morrison led the Earth fleet toward Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the hegemony's central command. The alien fortress was larger than most moons, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire planets. But Jake felt no fear as he approached it. Through the mental network that connected all awakened humans, he could sense the determination of every person fighting for freedom across the galaxy. At the same time, Captain Sarah Knox was leading a liberation fleet toward the fortress world of Sigma Draconis. Her ships moved through space like living things, responding to her thoughts faster than any computer could process commands. The prison planet held over 10 million humans who had been enslaved for generations, and Sarah was determined to set them all free. On Sigma Draconis itself, the uprising had already begun. Maya Chun stood in the central courtyard of the largest prison camp, her arms raised toward the sky. Energy flowed through her body like electricity, but instead of hurting her, it made her stronger. Around her, thousands of freed slaves were channeling their collective will into breaking the energy barriers that had kept them trapped. The alien guards tried to stop them with their energy weapons, but the beams of destructive force simply vanished when they hit the humans. The awakened prisoners had learned to absorb energy attacks and convert them into power for their own use. Every shot the aliens fired only made the humans stronger. Maya felt the presence of her fellow humans across the galaxy through the mental network. She could sense Jake Morrison approaching Nexus Prime, could feel the determination of rebels on dozens of other worlds. They were all connected now, all part of something larger than any individual person. "We are not slaves anymore," Maya shouted to the crowd around her. "We are free and we will never be chained again." The alien prison warden, a massive insectoid creature called Commander Zexthal, emerged from his fortress with a squad of heavily armed soldiers. He had ruled this world for over a century and had never seen humans display anything like the power he was witnessing now. "Impossible," Zexthal clicked through his translator device. "Humans are cattle. You cannot possess such abilities." Maya looked at the alien commander with eyes that blazed with inner fire. "That's what you never understood about us. We're not cattle. We're not animals. We're human beings, and our spirit cannot be broken. She extended her hand toward Zexthal, and the alien commander's weapons simply crumbled to dust. His armor fell away in pieces, leaving him defenseless before the human he had tormented for so many years. Meanwhile, at Nexus Prime, the space battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The hegemony's most powerful warships fired weapons that could shatter mountains, but the human fleet absorbed every attack and sent the energy back at their enemies with doubled force. Jake Morrison's flagship, the UHS Liberation, moved through the alien battle formation like a shark through schools of fish. The ship's hull glowed with energy channeled from every human on board. When enemy missiles struck it, they simply bounced off harmlessly. General Claire Bennett's Terran fleet attacked from another direction, their ships moving in perfect coordination despite being thousands of miles apart. The Terran vessels seemed to dance through space, avoiding enemy fire with a grace that made them look like they were performing a ballet. Inside Nexus Prime, the 5 leaders of the hegemony were meeting in emergency session. The Vorthek Queen, a massive insectoid creature with razor-sharp claws, paced back and forth in agitation, the Nexari energy being flickered with patterns of fear and confusion. The Drachmath general hissed orders that his troops could no longer follow. The Quillan science director's tentacles writhed in distress. The Zephyrian trade master's feathers were ruffled with panic. "How is this possible?" the Vorthek Queen demanded. "Humans are supposed to be docile. They should not be able to resist our technology." The Nexari energy being pulsed with urgent communication. "Our energy harvesting network is failing across 17 sectors. The humans are somehow converting our suppression fields into power sources for their own use." Dr. Amanda Foster and Elder Marcus Stone materialized in the center of the alien council chamber. They had used their combined will energy to teleport directly through the station's shields and armor. The sight of 2 humans appearing in their most secure location sent the alien leaders into a panic. "You have ruled through fear and cruelty for too long," Dr. Foster said, her voice carrying the power of millions of free humans across the galaxy. "Your empire was built on our suffering, but that ends today." The Vorthek Queen tried to activate the chamber's defense systems, but the weapons would not respond. Elder Stone had taken control of the station's technology simply by willing it to obey him instead of the aliens. "You made one crucial mistake," Stone said calmly. "You thought we were just animals to be harvested. You never understood that consciousness and will are the most powerful forces in the universe. Every time you made us suffer, every time you broke our spirits, you were actually making us stronger." The Drachmath general lunged at Dr. Foster with claws that could cut through steel, but she simply raised her hand and the alien stopped in midair, held motionless by her focused thought. "For 50,000 years you have fed off our pain and despair," Dr. Foster continued. "You built your civilization on human misery. But you never realized that human beings become strongest when they have something to fight for." Outside the station, the battle was turning into a rout. Human ships that should have been destroyed were instead growing stronger with every attack. The awakened humans had learned to draw power not just from their own will, but from their connections to each other. The more aliens that attacked them, the more powerful they became. Colonel Brad Coleman led a boarding party onto a hegemony battleship. His soldiers moved through the enemy vessel like unstoppable forces of nature. Alien weapons that should have killed them instantly were absorbed and converted into healing energy. Barriers that should have stopped them were simply wished out of existence. The alien crew of the battleship surrendered without firing another shot. They had never encountered anything like these awakened humans, and they had no idea how to fight enemies who became stronger every time they were attacked. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Jack Thompson led freed slaves in dismantling the energy harvesting equipment that had drained their life force for generations. On New Eden, awakened farmers were using their abilities to heal the environmental damage that centuries of alien exploitation had caused. Back on Nexus Prime, the hegemony leaders were forced to confront the truth about what they had created. By suppressing human development and harvesting human energy, they had unknowingly prepared their own destruction. You see, Elderstone explained, every time you made us suffer, you were teaching us to endure. Every time you broke our bodies, you were showing us how to heal. Every time you tried to crush our spirits, you were proving that our spirits could not be broken. The Quillen Science Director's tentacles trembled as it spoke. We did not know. We thought you were simply another species to be managed and harvested. Doctor, Foster's eyes blazed with the accumulated anger of 50,000 years of human suffering. You knew exactly what you were doing. You chose to build your paradise on our pain. Now you will face the consequences of that choice. The energy wave that erupted from the combined will of billions of free humans across the galaxy was unlike anything the universe had ever experienced. It swept through space faster than light, reaching every hegemony facility simultaneously. Energy harvesting stations exploded. Slave suppression devices overloaded and burned out. Warships lost power and drifted helplessly through space. The feedback from the collapsing energy network destroyed most of the hegemony's technology in a matter of minutes. Their empire, built on stolen human suffering, crumbled when its foundation was removed. Some of the alien species tried to flee, but there was nowhere to run. The awakened humans could sense their presence anywhere in the galaxy. Others, like the Quillen, threw themselves on human mercy and begged for forgiveness. The Vorthak Queen made one last desperate attempt to maintain her power. She activated the station's self-destruct sequence, hoping to take the human leaders with her. But Jake Morrison's fleet was ready. Using their combined will energy, they simply prevented the explosion from happening. In the aftermath of the battle, humanity faced a choice that would determine the future of the galaxy. They had the power to destroy their former oppressors completely, to make them pay for thousands of years of cruelty and suffering. Instead, they chose mercy. The Terran Federation was established as a government dedicated to protecting all free beings, not just humans. The alien species that had cooperated with the hegemony were given chances to make amends for their crimes. Those that refused were exiled to worlds where they could harm no one. The galaxy entered a new age of freedom and cooperation.